Okay. Aaron Esparza, dual-hatted, military-wise, Master Sergeant Esparza. I'm assigned to the MXS squadron as a section chief in the propulsion shop.
Okay.
So been on March about 2003 was when I got here in March.
Okay.
Been with MXS, the group, and down on the MXS side, on the C-17 side.
Okay.
So civilian-wise, I just recently, about 2 weeks ago, took over as the VPI, the Violence Prevention Integrator.
Okay.
Working on base with Elaine and Frank Pavone in their programs with the SAPR and Psychological Health Department.
Awesome.
So, and that's, I'm assigned to the wing staff in that role.
Okay, very cool. So on the reserve side, it's Master Sergeant Esparza.
Yeah.
On the VPI side, it's Dr. Esparza. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But Aaron, if you see me.
Awesome. Very good. Tell us a little bit about as VPI. Tell us that acronym, what that means, and tell us a little bit about what that job does.
So I'm still getting used to it myself on what the VPI is. I've been working closely, well, first the VPI is the Violence Prevention Integrator.
Okay.
And previous to me, it was Major Pageant's role. She's now out of 4th Air Force and recently took a position over in Germany.
Okay.
And I'm in really good communications with her on learning my role here. What that means for me is the violence prevention can be an array of things. It could be working with psychological health, or Elaine Valentine, on domestic violence. It could work with suicide, working with the commanders on post-suicide attempts or suicide attempts, and their follow-on with checklists and their processes on doing that and whatnot. Really serving as a liaison to anything violence related.
Okay.
And serving somewhat as a program manager and integrator to helping those trends reduce.
Okay, awesome. Tell me a little bit about what drew you to violence prevention work. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of education and training that goes into that. So tell me a little bit about your heart. What excites you about that work?
Oh, you know, you never know what you're gonna get, coming into work. An airman could, very well could call their commander, and now I got to get involved, on helping out in some way, helping an airman out, whether that means with their safety, ensuring their safety, maybe at a local clinic, or getting them in contact with yourself, with religious affairs, or maybe Elaine, playing that liaison for that airman or that commander on which direction to go to secure the health of this airman. Yeah. Prior to this, I've worked in the jail systems, the school systems.
Okay.
I most recently came from San Bernardino County, where I worked in a crisis center, and suicide, homicides, and med compliance, and your just everyday depression, anxieties. That was my specialty, if anything, was helping reduce self-harm and harm to others. And hopefully I can bring that to the table here at March. Yeah.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your background, just like a summary of your training or education, your experience. I know you just did a little bit with where you came from, but give us a little bit of a snapshot of that.
So I never pictured I'd be in mental health, going into school. I started college in 2006, graduated 2008 with my bachelor's, and then 2010 and 2013 my master's and doctorate. And so I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And I was working towards a licensed psychologist license, which fell short of my state hours. So I operate under my licensed marriage and family therapist license.
Okay.
School-wise, I love school. I wish I can be a full-time student all the time and just keep learning.
Yes.
But there comes a point where it's time to give back, and I think that's what I love. Taking what I formerly learned, my experiences through the jails, the school systems, and giving it back now to a population that's dear to me is the Air Force, our airmen.
Okay, that's awesome. Here's a question that comes to mind for you. Sounds to me like your role is you're sort of here to help everybody in a sense, but here's what I mean by that is, and I want you to speak to this, is is if you've got a supervisor or a commander or someone who's high in that chain of command, and they go, I need help for our group or our squadron or our flight. How can you be of assistance to someone from a command perspective, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah.
And then the second part of that question, and you'll kind of see what I mean, is I want you to think about that airman who's out turning wrenches on a flight line, who just says, how can you help me as an individual? So it seems like your role is both of those. Can you speak to how your role helps at a squadron level, and then how your role helps at an individual level?
Absolutely. So when it comes to I would say leadership soliciting, maybe a needed service or a topic that maybe they see a trend increase in their units or squadrons and whatnot. It's an expertise that we can sit down with our team members, religious affairs, psychological health, and say, okay, how would we attack this together?
Yeah.
Looking at the whole airman, is this just emotional health? Is it isolated events? Or are there true trends that are happening here, and we need to address something more systemic here, and develop a thorough plan on doing that.
Wow.
And leadership has enough on their plate to as far as the mission goes, and getting that accomplished, where we can soften that in our expertise and take on that role to incorporate the safety of the airmen to ensure the safety of the mission. Then that's where we would want to step in. For the everyday airman, been there. Those cold days on the flight line,
Yes.
the hot days on the flight line, the long deployments, the away from family, the separation from family. It could be something financial, not necessarily immediate, but prolonged, something that's just chronic and just continuous. There's a lot of resources here. Let us be that for you, because no matter what the issue may present itself to be, there are a lot of resources. And now that I'm in this VPI role, I'm actually seeing stuff that I never even knew as an airman.
Wow.
That are available. And I, just in my own role, for instance, I didn't know the VPI role was actually separate than like SAPR or anything else. I thought it was just kind of the psychological department,
Sure.
mental health department, and that was it. I didn't understand the individual people's roles in those spots.
Okay.
And now I'm seeing it firsthand.
Wow.
And to me, that's huge, because now I can say, wow, the knowledge is there. So now let's get the knowledge out. Because if I wasn't knowing it, and I think in my role I had a good grasp on what was being offered. I was even a resiliency trainer, green dot trainer here. So I was working with Frank for the past 3 to 5 years, and I still didn't fully understand what was being offered.
Wow.
So I think now that's absolutely a goal of mine, letting the airmen know, hey, this is exactly what is offered, and this is exactly how we can help and build that knowledge base with our airmen.
Okay. And is your role, I want to ask a little bit about confidentiality. If you've got, as you said, the everyday airmen, and they have a question, are they able just to come to you and ask questions about what resources are available? How does that work with your role?
So dual-hatted. So in my civilian role, absolutely. If somebody comes to me with questions or concerns, the same reporting applies. I don't do clinical work in the VPI per se, so I wouldn't sit down and do like one-on-one counseling with somebody.
Sure.
But I would get them to Elaine, to Frank, who can, and explain to them what their options are, as well as with yourself. Where do they have full confidentiality versus where they don't. I recently, speaking with you and Chief White on the CAT responsibilities, I think we mentioned a little breakdown of that chart.
Yes.
Phenomenal chart, because it's very straightforward on whose roles apply in certain situations. And I think just building that knowledge base would be phenomenal for the airmen. As far as me, I'm not technically in a clinical role here.
Yes.
I'm more in like a program management role.
Sure.
So that, I have to draw the line at that. In the military side of things, when I'm section chief, I'm not clinical Esparza, I'm not VPI Esparza. So again, I would follow the chain of command and seek the services that are appropriate for the airmen.
Awesome. One of the heartbeats of what we're doing with this series is, I know it's maybe sounds silly, but I just think about we've got all these helping agencies who exist to be advocates. That's the word that to me always rings, is like, man, these people are here for you. But I think too, we're trying to narrow the gap, as you said, between them and between our advocates and those who need that advocacy. So my question would be kind of a funny question. If you could say anything to our young airmen who are just overwhelmed by life and they're just like, I need help, what would be your message to them?
Oh. Ask questions. Ask questions if you don't know. Because there will come a time in career that you're going to be asked that question, or perhaps need those assistances. Our profession of mental health doesn't discriminate. From the top down, bottom up, it doesn't discriminate. There comes a time where we all need help of some sort, or perhaps somebody is going to ask us for help, and we want to have the answers. So ask questions and get as much knowledge of the resources available.
Awesome. And this is the last question I can think of, unless something else comes to mind here spontaneously, but I want to go back to your role as a program manager and the ability to sort of have a pulse on the needs of a squadron or a group and build a program to meet those needs. If you've got a flight chief or a superintendent, a first sergeant, a commander, a DO, someone who's in a chain of command, do they need to have all of their stuff figured out before they come to you, or can they just come to you and say, we've got some challenges, I don't quite understand what it is or what the solution is, and you build that together?
Absolutely. Just an open forum. I don't think any one person, from the commander to the newest airman, needs to know all the answers. Pick my brain, Elaine's brain, Frank's, yourself, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We can tailor. Mental health or getting help is not a cookie cutter process. So no one problem or situation in one unit is going to be the same as another. So I think we're going to have to tailor those processes and those programs. But let us know so we can help the best we can and tailor it to the best we can.
Awesome. It's great. Thanks for making time.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it and the opportunity.
Yes.
This is it's a fun process. I hope that it touches a lot of the airmen, because I truly believe that the knowledge, we all have it, but getting it out there is, we need to get it out there.
Awesome.
We need to get it out there.
Could you tell us your contact information? How does someone get a hold of you?
So my VPI role is based out of building 317, which is right next door to the gym, about a half a block over in the center field. And my email is firstname.lastname.3@usaf.mil.
Okay.
I'm currently working on the SharePoint, so that's kind of in the works. Otherwise, that would be another means, and I will notify everybody when the SharePoint is up and running.
Okay.
It's currently up and running, just I'm going to update it.
Okay.
And phone number is commercials 951-655-2126.
Okay. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.